They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from the ones closest to you. I always thought that was poetic nonsense, until the night I walked into my own living room and found out my wife's idea of home improvement included my best friend on the couch. And I don't mean he was fixing the cushions. No. He was tangled up in them, with her, in ways even IKEA wouldn't dare describe in their instruction manuals. I froze in the doorway, coffee still in my hand, the smell of roasted beans suddenly mixing with the bitter stench of something far stronger, deceit. My wife, Jessica, looked at me like a deer caught in headlights. My best friend, Mark, jumped up so fast he nearly tripped over his pants. And me? I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because sometimes the absurdity of life forces a chuckle out of you, like a cough you can't suppress. Jessica stammered, "It's not what it looks like," which is, ironically, the universal phrase people use when it is exactly what it looks like. Mark scratched his head, mumbling excuses about wine, loneliness, and how one thing led to another. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just stood there, sipping my coffee, letting them stew in their own lies while my silence grew louder than any shouting could. See, that's the thing about me. I don't explode right away. I take notes. I watch. I file details like a detective with patience and a sense of humor too dark to survive daylight. I said nothing that night, just turned, walked to the kitchen, and poured my coffee down the drain. Because somehow, in that moment, the drink tasted tainted. The days that followed were filled with gaslighting. Jessica tried convincing me I was imagining things. She swore it was a drunken mistake and that it would never happen again. Meanwhile, Mark played the supportive buddy. He dropped by like nothing had happened, cracking jokes, patting me on the back, even offering to take me out for beers. His laughter rang hollow, rehearsed, like a stand-up comic bombing on stage. At first I played along. I nodded. I smiled. I let them believe I was buying their act. But behind the mask, I was collecting evidence. Receipts from dinners that never included me, text messages she left unlocked by accident, her sudden love for late-night yoga classes. Funny, I never knew yoga studios served wine by the bottle. Each clue was a nail in the coffin of our marriage, hammered in with the kind of precision you can only manage when fueled by betrayal. My humor kept me sane. When Jessica said she was going to the gym, I quipped, "Don't pull a muscle." She laughed, not realizing I wasn't joking. When Mark bragged about his new watch, I asked, "Does it keep time or just steal it?" He didn't catch on either, but the cracks widened quickly. One night, Jessica left her laptop open, and curiosity became too loud to ignore. That's when I found it. The emails. Not just about love, not just about lust, but about money. Transfers from our joint account, plans for a trip abroad. My so-called best friend and my wife weren't just sneaking kisses. They were siphoning my life's work to fund their future. That discovery changed everything. Suddenly the affair wasn't just personal, it was financial treason, betrayal in stereo. I realized then that Jessica didn't just want Mark. She wanted the life I had built, stripped clean of me. And Mark wasn't just a fling, he was her partner in crime. The anger boiled in me, but instead of exploding, I smiled. Because now I had leverage. You don't fight betrayal with fists. You fight it with patience, precision, and a little theater. They thought I was blind, a clueless husband too busy working to notice. They thought they could carve me out of my own story. What they didn't realize was that I had been quietly rewriting the ending all along. I started planning. Carefully, methodically. I froze our joint accounts, moved assets under my name alone, shifted investments out of reach, all while pretending nothing was wrong. Jessica thought she was winning. Mark thought he was clever. And me. I was the calm before their storm. Every night, I rehearsed the reveal in my head. How I'd confront them. how I'd dismantle their fantasy with surgical precision. But I wasn't ready yet. I needed them to believe the lie a little longer, because the best revenge isn't rushed. It's served cold, plated with irony, and garnished with smug satisfaction. So I smiled when Jessica kissed me goodnight. I laughed at Mark's terrible jokes. I let them think they were playing me. Little did they know I was letting them dig their own graves, one careless choice at a time, and I couldn't wait for the day I'd hand them the shovels and watch. I once read that patience is the art of concealing your claws until the prey is convinced you don't even have teeth. That became my mantra. Every smile I gave Jessica, every handshake with Mark, was just another brushstroke in the masterpiece of their downfall, and I'll admit, there was a certain thrill in it, watching them prance around like amateur actors in a play I had already rewritten was comedy, dark comedy, but comedy all the same. Jessica kept insisting everything was back to normal. She cooked dinner more often, tried to be affectionate, even sprinkled in compliments I hadn't heard since our honeymoon phase. "You're looking sharp today," she'd say, though her eyes would flicker to her phone mid-sentence. I'd grin and reply, "Sharp enough to cut through lies, maybe." She'd laugh nervously, thinking it was just my dry humor, but every joke carried a truth, sharpened like a blade. Mark, on the other hand, grew cocky. He started dropping hints that tested how far he could push me. "You work too hard, buddy," he'd say, sipping my beer like it was his. "A man's got to know when to take a break." The irony wasn't lost on me. He was taking plenty of breaks with my wife. I smiled, clinking his glass. "You're right, and when I do take a break, I make it permanent." He chuckled. I didn't. Behind the scenes, I was cleaning house, literally and financially. The joint account was already frozen, but I went further. I spoke with my lawyer, transferred property deeds, shifted stocks, and created a wall so high that even if Jessica and Mark tried scaling it, they'd fall flat on their faces. The house was mine alone. The savings? Locked. And the kicker. I owned a controlling share in the company Mark bragged about working at. He'd been boasting about a promotion coming up. What he didn't know was that I had the power to yank the ladder out from under him before he even started climbing. But revenge isn't just about legal papers and bank transfers. No, real revenge needs theatre. It needs a stage, an audience, and a finale no one can forget. That's when the idea struck me. Dinner. A simple, intimate dinner where truths would be served hotter than the roast. I invited them both on a Friday night. Jessica assumed it was an olive branch, a husband trying to patch things up. Mark thought it was a bro-bonding attempt, the kind men do with beers and bad jokes. Neither of them knew it was an execution scheduled with dessert. The week leading up to dinner was the hardest part, keeping my mask in place. Jessica grew bold, even careless. She left a necklace on the nightstand that wasn't from me. Mark texted me the same afternoon he texted her, "Let's grab drinks tonight." Minutes later, I heard her phone buzz with a message from him, likely coordinating their next rendezvous. Their audacity would have been insulting if it wasn't so laughable. I spent that week rehearsing lines. Not the kind of shouting matches you see in soap operas, but surgical one-liners, the kind that would slice through their lies with precision. Phrases like, "Funny thing about trust, it doesn't bounce back once it breaks," or "It's amazing how quickly love turns into accounting errors when the money's gone." I wanted each word to hit like a hammer disguised as a feather. Friday came. I set the table, lit candles, poured wine. The atmosphere was warm, almost romantic, but there was a sharpness in the air only I could feel. Jessica arrived first, dressed up, hopeful. "This feels nice," she said, her voice soft, as though she'd already forgiven herself. Mark showed up 20 minutes late, grinning like a fool, carrying a cheap bottle of wine. "Thought I'd bring something to the table," he said. Oh, how right he was. Dinner began quietly enough. Small talk, laughter, clinking glasses. Jessica gushed about a yoga retreat she wanted to try. Mark bragged about office politics, about how he was this close to securing a big step up. I nodded, swirling my glass of wine, letting them chatter while I studied them like lab rats in a maze. Then came the first strike. I leaned back and said casually, "Funny thing about joint accounts, they're only joint until someone decides to freeze them." The room fell silent for a beat. Jessica blinked, forcing a smile. "What do you mean?" she asked, too quickly. Mark looked down at his plate, suddenly fascinated by his mashed potatoes. "Oh, nothing dramatic," I continued, sipping my wine. "Just moved some things around. You know, protecting assets. Can't be too careful these days." My smile was calm, almost polite, but Jessica's hand trembled around her fork. Strike two came moments later. Mark was rambling about a project at work when I cut in. "It's funny, you've been talking a lot about that promotion. Shame the company's restructuring. New majority shareholder and all. Decisions can change overnight." His fork froze midair. His eyes flickered to mine, searching for a clue, any hint of a joke. I gave him none. Jessica tried to smooth things over with a laugh. "You're always so cryptic. Can't we just enjoy dinner?" But her voice cracked. My smile widened. "Of course," I said, raising my glass. "Let's enjoy it while it lasts." From there the cracks spread like shattered glass. They whispered to each other when they thought I wasn't looking. Jessica's charm crumbled, her mask slipping. Mark shifted uncomfortably, sweat gathering on his forehead despite the cool air. And me? I was calm. I was ice. I was the storm they never saw coming. After dessert, I delivered the final blow. "You know," I began, setting my fork down, "betrayal isn't just about bodies tangled on a couch. It's about intent, deception, theft. You two didn't just betray me. You tried to erase me. But here's the twist. You were never playing me. I was playing you." Jessica's face drained of color. Mark muttered something about misunderstandings, but the word fell flat. I leaned in, voice steady. "The money? Gone. The house? Mine. The job you thought you'd climb into? Consider it pulled out from under you. Congratulations. You've built a future together on sand, and the tide is rolling in." Silence hung heavy. Jessica's fork clattered onto her plate. Mark opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. I sat back, folding my arms, savoring the theater of their downfall. I didn't yell, I didn't curse, I just let the truth do the work. Because sometimes the most devastating sound isn't a scream, it's silence followed by the collapse of lies. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. The dinner ended not with dessert, but with Jessica storming out and Mark stumbling behind her, both of them realizing the world they thought they'd stolen was nothing more than smoke. And me? I stayed behind, poured myself another glass of wine, and toasted to patience, because patience had paid me back with interest. The silence after they left was almost too clean. The clink of the front door shutting echoed like the final gavel in a courtroom. I sat there at the head of the table, the candles flickering, the wine still breathing, and for the first time in months I felt something close to peace. Not joy, not triumph. Peace. The kind that comes when the storm has passed and you're the only one left standing. But peace doesn't last forever. The fallout always comes, and it came faster than I expected. The very next morning, Jessica barged into the house like a hurricane, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "What did you do?" she screamed, waving her phone in my face. "The accounts are locked, the cards declined, my parents are calling me. What did you do?" I leaned against the counter, sipping my coffee. "I made some adjustments," I said casually. "Thought it was time to streamline. You know, financial spring cleaning." The calmness in my tone only enraged her more. "You can't just—" she started, but I cut her off. "Actually, I can. The accounts were in my name. The house is in my name. The investments, also mine. You didn't just cheat on me, Jessica. You underestimated me, and that, I think, is your bigger mistake." She stood there, seething, her makeup smudged, her hair a tangled mess of desperation. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. But pity is wasted on someone who sharpened the knife before stabbing you with it. Later that day, I got a call from Mark. His voice cracked with panic. "Man, listen. This is all a misunderstanding. I didn't mean for things to go this far." "Which part?" I asked dryly. "Sleeping with my wife or planning a retirement fund with my money?" He stammered, searching for excuses. I thought you'd never find out," Jess said. I cut him off with a laugh. Jess said, "Mark, you're not even original in your excuses. You're just parroting lies from a woman who couldn't even lie well. You should have stuck to beer pong, buddy. This league is out of your depth." Click. I ended the call. His desperation didn't deserve my time. But I wasn't done. You see, betrayal isn't something you just walk away from with a shrug. It demands a conclusion, a closing act that ensures the audience never forgets the show. And for me, that meant watching them unravel, not just in private, but in public. A week later, the company held its quarterly meeting. As the majority shareholder, I was front row. Mark walked in with his usual bravado, chest puffed, tie knotted too tight. He was expecting his big moment, the promotion he'd been bragging about. What he didn't expect was the announcement that restructuring meant his role was eliminated, effective immediately. I didn't have to say a word. I just watched as the color drained from his face, his mouth opening like he wanted to protest, but no sound coming out. He glanced at me, eyes wide with shock. I raised my glass of water in a mock toast. Dark humor is best served with subtle gestures. Jessica, meanwhile, tried clawing her way back into my life. She showed up at the house repeatedly, pleading, crying, promising change. "We can fix this," she said one night, standing on the porch in the rain like a rejected character from a bad romance movie. I opened the door just wide enough to meet her eyes. "Fix this?" I asked. "Jessica, you don't fix broken glass by stepping on it barefoot. You sweep it up and throw it out." Then I closed the door. Her sobs echoed through the rain, but I didn't reopen it. Not this time. Word of their affair spread quickly. Secrets have a way of sprinting faster than truths. Friends distanced themselves. Her family, once supportive, quietly backed away. Mark's co-workers whispered behind his back. They had thought they were the stars of their own forbidden love story, but now they were the cautionary tale no one wanted to repeat. And me? I found freedom in the ruins. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming myself. For years I had worked late nights, sacrificed, provided, believing loyalty was mutual. The betrayal taught me otherwise. But instead of breaking me, it clarified me. I started running again, something I hadn't done since college. I traveled alone, discovering how silence could be more comforting than forced conversation. And when people asked if I was okay, I didn't hide behind jokes anymore. I told them, I'm better than okay. I'm aware now. Awareness, after all, is sharper than any blade. But don't mistake this for forgiveness. I didn't forgive Jessica. I didn't forgive Mark. Forgiveness implies they deserve release, and they didn't. What I did was detach, cut the strings, burn the script. They were no longer players in my story, just footnotes in a chapter about lessons learned. Months passed. Then one day I bumped into them. Together, of course, though not as radiant as they once imagined. Jessica's charm had dimmed, Mark's swagger deflated. They looked smaller somehow, like balloons left too long after the party. She tried to smile. "You look good," she said. I nodded. "I am good. Simple. Clean. No theatrics. Mark tried to speak, but I didn't give him the chance. I turned and walked away, leaving them to stand in the shadow of their own choices. That was the final act. Not the dinner, not the financial ruin, not the job loss. No, the true finale was my indifference, because nothing cuts deeper than realizing the person you thought you destroyed doesn't even see you as worth the effort anymore. Looking back, I don't see myself as a victim. Victims stay trapped in the narrative written by others. I see myself as the editor, the one who redrafted the ending when the plot went off the rails. My story wasn't about their betrayal. It was about my response, and my response was measured, deliberate, and unforgettable. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Personally, I found it best served medium rare, with a side of smug satisfaction and a sprinkle of irony. And the best part, you don't even have to eat it with them. You just set it down, let them smell it, and then walk away knowing they'll starve without it. So here's the truth I've learned. Betrayal doesn't define you, it reveals them. What defines you is how you handle the fallout, whether you drown in it or swim to shore and build something better. Me? I didn't just swim. I walked out of the water, dried off, and set fire to the bridge they thought I'd crawl across again. And as I sip my coffee now, untainted and mine alone, I realize the irony of it all. Jessica and Mark taught me the value of betrayal. Without it, I might have stayed blind. With it, I became sharper, stronger, and funnier too, because life's most bitter moments deserve the darkest punchlines. They wanted to build a life together, I tell myself sometimes, with a wry smile. Let them. Just not on my dime, not on my couch, and definitely not on my time.